Welcome to Vampires and Mermaids. I'm Erin.
I'm Risha.
And we have some more vampire and mermaid tales for you today.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any major updates, do we? Or anything we need to plug first? I haven't been plugging our Instagram.
Or our email.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, our Instagram is Vamps and Mers. Mm-hmm. The and is spelled out. And what's our email?
vampsandmers@gmail.com.
Excellent. We kept it consistent.
Yeah.
So if you want to write into us, you can on either of those, but go ahead and give us a follow. Mm-hmm. Let us know if there's any stories or legends you'd like us to share.
Yeah, or if we messed something up that we can correct in the next episode.
If someone could tell me about the monster typhon before it becomes the monster typhoon next time, that'd be cool.
Well, today I have a little bit of a different one than what we've normally done. This one is about a vampire that is around 526 years old currently. Nope, 27 years old currently. This is a true crime story. So, Visago is the vampire name that Rod Ferell chose for himself.
Oh boy.
Roderick Justin Ferrell was born in...
Ferrell?
Ferrell.
Like a cat?
No. Ferrell.
Okay. Oh, like Will Ferrell.
Yes.
Okay. Something tells me that the feral cat is going to be more apt.
Well, I'll let you decide.
Right. I'm not going to like this man very much, am I? All right. Sorry, continue.
No, he was born in 1980 in Murray, Kentucky, and he has become well known for the crimes he committed, murder for one. He, in the mid to late 90s, got together a gang of teenagers, and they called themselves the Vampire Clan.
Totally normal thing to do.
Yes, and he claimed his name was Visago, and he had no soul and was a 500-year-old vampire.
But he was born
in 1980.
Okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to
clarify that.
Yep.
And so if you look at that name, which I looked into the name because I like names, he took the name from a demon described in demonological grimoires, like the Lesser Key of Solomon. He is described as the prince of a good nature, rules 26 legions of spirits, and is summoned to tell magicians of past and future events and to locate lost objects.
I mean, he doesn't sound like that bad of a guy.
No, I mean, that sounds like a decent demon.
I've been friends with worse people.
Yeah, right? The same demon is appearing just and true in all his doings. Powers of inciting the love of women and revealing hidden treasures.
I've dated worse people. I'm waiting for this to go bad.
Well, Rod did not say or spell this demon's name correctly. He said Visago, and I actually might say this wrong, but it's Visago is correct. It's Vassgo is the correct one. He said Vesago and spelled it Vasago.
Okay.
So he didn't do his lore correctly, even though he's 500 years old and should know better.
Seems problematic.
But this was important to him and his victims because he burned a V into his victims.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a kind of a little bit of a rundown, and then I'll go into more details. 1996, he pleaded guilty to double slaying of a couple from Florida. And then that got him to become the youngest person in the United States on death row.
Oof.
Even though he's 500 and some years old, so technically the oldest.
That's really ironic.
In 1996, though, he murdered parents of a former girlfriend.
Oh.
When he was 16 years old. He got really into the role-playing game Vampire the Masquerade.
Okay.
I don't know anything else about that, but that was something that he really enjoyed. And the vampire clan that he formed, their aim was to open the gates of hell by killing people and stealing their souls.
And that's where you lost me. Because, yeah, I feel like it's important to just say any of these things, being into role-playing games. We both
yeah.
enjoy D&D.
Sure. Oh, heck yeah.
You've played quite a bit of different role-play games.
Yeah.
We're huge proponents of that. That's great. Starting an organization of fellow youths. Fantastic.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
We love it. When it starts to become too much is where it's an issue, like when that group of youths' main plan is that. Okay, just wanted to disclaim that.
Oh, yes, yeah. He was arrested within a few days of the murders that happened, so there weren't a lot, but within a few days he was arrested.
So he did all of those very quickly, like back to back? Okay.
As far as I know, I could be wrong
Sure.
as I look further and remember my notes. But he told officers that he was a vampire that was too powerful to be held for very long.
Oh, you about to find out.
Yeah, because he ended up, being convicted and in jail and is still to this day in jail. Because in 1999, Florida Supreme Court reduced his sentence to life without parole instead of having him on death row.
I guess to be fair, 30 years to a 500-plus-year-old vampire might not be that long.
That's true. So he's too powerful to be held for very long.
I would have hated to be that cop because that's just an insanely hard job, and my heart goes out to him for having to do that. But there also would be that slight level of irony, right, when you're putting someone you really do not like because they're a bad person in handcuffs and them telling you that. Like, you have to just have a moment of chuckling to yourself. Like, sure, bud, sure, you think that.
Yeah, right. And since this is a true crime, and I'm never really sure what the line is on how far to go where it becomes like disrespectful to the victims, or because we aren't glorifying him by any means. And so I don't know if we go into kind of either what happened to the victims or talking about their names or anything.
Sure. I guess I listen to a fair amount of true crime, and it's very dependent on the individuals and the individual podcasts. We certainly can, honestly, I would say maybe let's plan on just leaving names out. And if people want to go do their own research, there are other places for that. We just don't have to be that source of information. Yeah. And I don't know, I think if you want to talk about what happened overall and / relative to the podcast, I would be in support of that. I'm hoping that's not an incorrect call. What are your thoughts?
I might just do, again, more of like an overarching instead of more like the detail, because of course you can go look this up yourself easy. He the main, like, I guess, mode of murder was beating. So that's all I'll say about that.
Sure.
And again, he would burn the shape of a V into his victims. Yeah, there's a lot. Like, you can read several paragraphs and paragraphs on what happened to this couple that was the parents of his ex-girlfriend. Then his whole vampire clan, they were with him, I guess, on this. But when he was pleading, he pled guilty right away. And he said no one else was involved except for possibly Scott Anderson as a accomplice. And so he was also convicted too. And they are both still in jail currently. And there were several things that have been in the media later that have been based on him.
Sure.
Like in like true crime stuff, TV shows and songs, some films, like Vampire Clan is a film that came out in 2002. And then otherwise just random little excerpts about him.
What a sad life.
Right.
So did he ever say, and maybe you didn't find this because you're talking to a crazy person, so I don't know how much interrogation they got out of him.
Right.
Did he claim that, like, he said he had no soul. Did he claim that his consciousness was this 500-year-old vampire that got thrust into this, like, 16-year-old body? Was that his explanation, or did he just not even think it through that far?
I don't think he thought that far.
I mean, obviously this man did not have a lot of forward thought.
No.
I hope the ex-girlfriend is doing okay.
Oh, gosh, right.
I can't imagine what that would be like.
The survivor's guilt from that.
I hope she has been able to have a wonderful, wonderful life in spite of all that, because I can't imagine.
Right.
Rod Ferell, you are a motherfucker.
I will say, though, there is a mugshot that you can see of him on the internet, and he does not still look 16.
Okay.
So I'm gonna debunk him.
Gonna
as
go
an
with that he's
actual
aging.
Vampire, yeah.
That seems fair. Well, hopefully he can be debunked and just rot in that jail for a long time.
Yeah.
I appreciate that he at least pled guilty.
Right.
I have a slightly lighter topic.
Oh, I love that. Okay, good.
Yes, that worked out quite well. I'm going to be talking about the Fountain Lake Mermaid. So this is a mermaid statue that is in Minnesota, in Albert Lea specifically. We are also from Minnesota, gentle listeners.
Yeah, so we've both laid eyeballs on this thing.
We have both seen it, so we're going to be talking a little bit more in depth. You might have more background on it than I initially did. Maybe not.
Maybe.
Okay, well, feel free to inject
okay.
anything you might know about it. So the Fountain Lake Mermaid is in Fountain Lake in Albert Lea. She's maybe like 10, 15 feet away from the shore. It's a bronze statue with a stone base, and she is kind of looking towards a bridge and waving and smiling. Very friendly. The sculptor was George Bassett, and the statue was dedicated in 1994. It was sponsored by the Danish Brotherhood Lodge number 75. This is because the area of Albert Lea has a largely Danish population.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't you know?
It's also a blue zone.
Oh, yeah.
Which I believe means that people tend to live longer if they live there. Is that correct?
I'm not sure on that. I thought it had to do with being like more... having more outdoor options for recreation.
Regions in the world where people are claimed to live longer on average.
Really?
Maybe we do have a different type of, or maybe there is a different type of blue zone that is about that too, but maybe it's because of their friendly mermaid that waves as they go by. Exactly. Apparently that area was also known as New Denmark for a while.
Oh, the park that it's in is New Denmark Park. Yep.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah.
So the fun thing about that is New Denmark, and it being a largely Danish population donated by the Danish Brotherhood, is that it's kind of a tribute or a nod to the Copenhagen Mermaid. When they had this dedication, they had a little party in the park. There were speeches. The sculptor and the mayor did a speech. They also displayed American and Danish flags for the entirety of the rest of that year. There was accordion music. And some singers as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that Copenhagen Mermaid, though. She is, I guess I should go into her description a little bit better. She is a very classic mermaid look. So top body of a woman, head of a woman, bottom half is of a fish. Kind of very the classic Little Mermaid.
Oh, yeah.
Which we're going to get into by talking about the Copenhagen Mermaid. Ooh. Do you know anything about the Copenhagen Mermaid?
I only know in regards to like the social justice kind of movement stuff, like that they use that within, but I don't know her history.
And I'll talk a little about that part, but not a ton. The Copenhagen Mermaid is also called the Little Mermaid. And that, you're right, you're thinking of the Disney one, right?
Yeah.
You're correct. I did not know that. Oh. Well, kind of. You're not technically correct. But the Little Mermaid statue is an iconic symbol of Copenhagen and Denmark. It is the most famous of the mermaid statues because there are several around the world, including the one in Little Albert Lea.
Yeah.
The Copenhagen Mermaid has had many copies of it. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Not just the one in Albert Lea, the Fountain Lake one, but the sculptor. There we go. The sculptor of the Copenhagen Mermaid is Edvard Eriksson. Very Danish.
Yep.
It was commissioned by Carl Jacobsen of Carlsberg Brewers, which is a brewery still in operation in Denmark today.
Yo, cool.
Right. It is an international. It's quite large, actually. I didn't do a ton of deep diving, but it is still around. It was founded in, I think, mid-1800s. So kind of some fun history there. This mermaid, though... Oh, did I not write down when it was built? It was built in 1913. Okay. I didn't have it wrote down, but I remembered it. It was commissioned in 1910 by Carl Jacobsen to Edvard Eriksson because he had gone to the Royal Theatre Ballet in Copenhagen and saw a play based on Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid. Ooh. And he was kind of fascinated by this ballet based on The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen and the ballerina Ellen Price. And this main ballerina, Ellen Price, was supposedly approached and asked to model for the statue. That is what Carl wanted. He decided he was just so enamored with it, he commissioned a bronze statue to be made of her in the shape of a mermaid and placed out facing the ocean. There's some discrepancies on whether she modeled for it or not. She for sure did not model for the body. She was not comfortable modeling nude.
Oh, fair.
So Edvard actually had his wife, Eileen Eriksson, model for the body at least. Some resources say that Ellen Price was still the model for the face. Others say that no, that is definitely also Eileen. I couldn't find a ton of great pictures of it. And also, I'm not great at comparing early 1900s photos to a bronze statue, so I'm not really sure. You can go make your own conclusions about that. But the body is definitely Eileen Eriksson, the wife of the sculptor Edvard Eriksson, and she had posed for several of his sculptures leading up to that. It was moved for the first time in 2010, so the original has been there since 1913. It was moved to Shanghai in 2010, very briefly during the Expo 2010, which was a kind of a World's Fair, World's Expo that Shanghai hosted, and it was placed in the Danish pavilion. They did have a replica of the statue in the original location in Copenhagen still.
Oh, okay.
But it was moved at that time, and then it was put back. Wow. The original one is still there, which is pretty cool. It had its 100th anniversary in 2013. It's mostly still there. There has been a lot of vandalism. Yes. Unfortunately, people suck. I knew people suck. I did not realize they suck this bad. The main vandalism started in 1960s. I'm sure there were small cases of it before then, but that's when it seemed to really get bad. I'm not going to talk about all of that because that'd be a whole nother episode, but just kind of some of the really notable ones. On April 24th of 1964, the head of the Copenhagen Mermaid was sawed off and stolen by artists of the Situationist movement. It was never recovered, so it is not the original head. They did make a replica and replace it that way. On July 22nd of 1984, the right arm was stolen, but later returned. I think it was returned like 2 days later by two young men. I don't know the background on why they did that. It sounds like people being dumb. And then in 1990, there was another decapitation attempt where someone tried to saw it off and did not succeed, thankfully, but it did leave a 18 centimeter or 7-inch gash in the neck of the mermaid. Don't worry, though. It was successful in 1998 when it was once again decapitated. But that one was thankfully returned. Just don't take it.
Right.
It was returned and reattached a couple days later. It was returned to a local television station, I think. So you know quite a bit about the Copenhagen.
About the vandalisms, yeah.
Ridiculous.
Because art history.
I suppose. That makes sense. I was mad reading this.
Yeah.
You might be able to talk a little bit more about this, but I just wrote that there was a lot of paint incidences as well.
A lot of paint being thrown on her.
Yes, she was doused in paint quite regularly. The different flags were painted on the stone base. Yeah. At one point, someone, I think, doused her in paint and then wrote racist fish in a different language. No one was really sure what that meant. I don't know. Are there any notable ones that stand out to you?
I only know that there was a lot of red paint because they were like talking about the ecosystem in the ocean. People were upset. People were like overfishing and killing the ocean's like population and stuff. So
I saw
one of them.
I saw one that was definitely about whaling.
Yes.
I think. And then there were some about like feminism too, and it was kind of just a whole range.
Yeah.
And then there were even ones, I think there was one specific one that was about a gentleman who was incarcerated in Denmark and he was not from there.
Oh.
I don't know. There was a whole slew of different issues, which is frustrating.
She's used in a lot of movements.
Yeah. Which, you know, here in America, we love our freedom of speech. Just don't go defiling art and history. How about?
There's no reason.
Just write your local politicians, peacefully protest. Don't go defiling history. Vote. Vote is awesome. If you have that, if you are fortunate enough to live in a country where you get to have that say, please take your feelings out that way.
Yeah.
It's not technically considered vandalism, but another little interesting note is that dressing up the Copenhagen Mermaid is fairly common. It is the Fountain Lake one has had a few outfits as well.
Definitely seen a backwards baseball cap on her head.
That's wonderful. The Fountain Lake one, I've also saw pictures of her wearing a face mask during COVID.
Yes, yeah.
And someone put a swimsuit on her at one point.
A bra, yep.
Yes,
yep.
okay. I thought that was kind of funny. The
Scarf in the winter sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, how fun. Don't do that either, but at least it's not breaking things. The Copenhagen one has been sometimes a little bit more politically driven.
Sure.
So sometimes it's been dressed in like a burqa or assorted Muslim dresses. This typically coincides with either certain political actions going around. There's usually some type of a movement aspect to that as well. Sometimes it just has like a Santa hat on it. And then Norwegian or Swedish football team jerseys have quite frequently been placed. That is quite competitive. So apparently that is one of the most common ones that has been seen on her. There were debates about moving her out further into the ocean to try and prevent vandalism and tourists. That has not happened. That being said, the last little vandalism chunk I'll talk about is in September 10th of 2003. They used explosives. I don't know who they are, but someone used explosives to knock her off her stand, and she was basically launched into the harbor. There were holes in her wrists and knee from that, but she was able to be restored and replaced. So evidently, even if they would have moved her out further, I don't think that would have stopped explosives. Again, please just stop being stupid. Thanks. That's Erin's PSA. I got so mad researching this. So I would just like to officially tell everyone, if you've done dumb crap in your past, haven't we all? You don't need to keep doing it. Yeah. Leave the statues alone. And then the last little thing I want to talk about is there have been a lot of copyright issues with this mermaid. I did not think about that. I don't know what Albert Lee has as far as if they've needed permission or if it's been considered distant enough, like not quite the same style, that they haven't needed any type of a fee or paid or, a permit. But it is copyrighted until 70 years after the artist's death. So that means that the Copenhagen Mermaid is technically copyrighted until 2030.
Wow.
Yes. And there have been several legal battles between the artist's family, so the Eriksson family, and different entities. Specifically, there was a newspaper in, I believe, Copenhagen. It was at least in Denmark, that made some cartoon images of the mermaid. And I don't know what it was all depicting, but they did not like it. And there was a lawsuit that ensued. The Artists' Rights Society has also gotten involved and requested money from other places that have also used it. I know there was one suit that they did, and then the charges ended up being dropped later. But copyright is definitely an issue. So if you consider putting up your own statue, maybe just look into that. I know there's a really cool one. I think it's called Woman in a Wetsuit. And it's very similar, but she's just in a wetsuit instead of having a tail and has the long swimming fins. And that one they were able to get around the permit because it technically wasn't a mermaid. So that's a little bit about the Copenhagen Mermaid and the Fountain Lake Mermaid of Albert Lee. I do plan on covering Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid hopefully soon. Please. I don't know if I'll do it next week or not. Such a good one. I want to do it next week, but we'll see if I actually motivate enough to do that.
Sure, because that one can be daunting.
That can be daunting. Yeah. And I think I'm going to do that in one episode and then do Disney's Little Mermaid in a separate one, and then maybe even the live action tied on to that.
Ooh, which live action?
Well, that's a good point too. Also, I do have a plan. I just wanted to shout it out now because in the next handful of episodes, I do want to cover a book. And this is I don't know when I'll cover it, probably in the next month or two. But if you want to read along, or if you want to have it read by the time I talk about it, this is your heads up. So at some point, I want to read The Siren by Kira Cass. It was very popular on Book Talk in the last couple of years, and I kept seeing it. And I think that's going to be a little book coverage that I'm going to do. Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
I think it's a young adult, but maybe if you're like 12 and you're listening to this, maybe just ask your parents first. I don't know. I haven't actually read it yet.
12-year-old should be listening.
You probably, you know what? If you are, you've already heard enough. I guess do what you want. I would have loved the show as a 12-year-old. So sorry, Mom. Thanks for listening, though. So yeah, I will be covering that probably after I cover The Little Mermaid. I have a hold on it on Libby, which if you don't use Libby yet, you totally should.
Definitely.
I don't know if that's just the United States, but if you are in the US, you can get a lot of free audiobooks and digital books as well, so you can download it on your Kindle, read on your phone. But I should have that book in like 2 weeks, and I'll hopefully slam through it quite quick. It's a 7-hour audiobook, so I'll listen to that in like 5 hours. And
Cool.
we'll talk about that soon. So if you want to read along and not have any spoilers, that would be great. And we'll talk about that soon.
Nice.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I'm just wondering if when the copyright is up on the
Yeah.
Copenhagen Mermaid, if they're going to do a horror story on her.
Oh,
Because that's what they did with Winnie the Pooh, and now they're doing it with Mickey Mouse.
what?
Because Mickey Mouse just came into public domain. The Steamboat Willie version of him.
I did not know any of
Yeah.
this. Wait, so when did they do a horror movie about Winnie the Pooh?
Just last year.
Oh,
Yeah, not the cartoon Disney portion,
Sure.
because they do have some copyright on him on that look, but like the book Winnie the Pooh.
okay.
Yeah, that's public domain now, and there was a horror movie. Yeah.
I know you like horror, so I don't want to talk bad about it.
But I don't like that.
No.
That's fan fiction horror.
Yeah, leave Winnie the Pooh alone. And I'm all about fanfic, but like leave that on the AO3 or Tumblr. you know?
No, we don't need a full-length
No.
feature film. That's gore. It's mostly gore, too. Which is
It's
gross.
not about Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, right?
Just let him eat his honey and wear his crop tops. He's my life goal, okay? If grandma taught me anything, it's that you should just eat your honey and be confident in your body for making me watch Winnie the Pooh.
Eeyore was my favorite.
I mean, yeah, I do have a stuffed Eeyore at home.
Yes, me too.
Oh my God, does his tail come off?
Yes, like Velcro.
Yes!
But the bow part is like still sewn onto him.
The bow part for mine, I think, is sewn to the tail.
Yeah, like the bow.
Okay.
But the tail on the bow part of the tail is sewn to his leg so that you can Velcro off his tail, but it still stays with him.
Oh, see, this one, it Velcro's off, but then has like a 2-inch piece of ribbon that's attached to the same spot.
Oh.
Okay, so maybe next time next time we record, we'll bring our Eeyores. Because you girls have depression.
Yeah.
I think maturity is realizing that maybe Rabbit wasn't a bitch for being frustrated all the time with those characters.
Oh, no.
Just saying. Like, I see Winnie the Pooh keeps popping up on my TikTok, and I remember as a kid being like, Rabbit, God, you're such a buzzkill. You're always so irritated with Tigger, and you always, Piglet's so naive. And now as an adult, I'm like, no, when Rabbit was trapped in that hole trying to get Piglet to tie a knot and getting kind of frustrated, I get it now. But anyway, we don't need to this is not a Winnie the Pooh podcast. Well, Copenhagen Mermaid horror, I guess, I'm going to regret this. If they make one, and we're still doing this podcast, I will watch it just so I can talk about it. But we have to watch it in broad daylight, and I will be upset about it. That is my caveat. We have to do it at my house so I can hold my dog.
I can bring you McDonald's for it.
That would help.
Yeah.
Okay. With the lights on.
Yes.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'm a blinky in my Eeyore.
Watch your tails and cover your necks.
I still like stay thirsty and keep wet, but
That could be our new one.
we can have people vote. Do you want to do that in this episode or a different episode?
They can vote. That's fine.
All right, I'll put a poll in. Give us a vote. All right.
Bye.
Obscurantism and obfuscation.
Orally observed, gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Obviated objects of oblivion.
Obambulating about.
Offered unto you.
Offered unto you.
Offered unto you.
In the Tapestry Radio Network.
Tapestryradio.org.
From our fancy to yours.